Howdy YouTube, welcome to this episode of Gunman Raw. So we've got another masking vid. Today we've got the plastic, and we're going to do the taping up on this Volkswagen Polo. So a couple of days ago I uploaded a video where we did the edge masking, well most of it anyways. I cut it off at about 25 minutes because it just makes my life easier. And we got some more plastic here, there we go. Friday at 2:30, happy days mate, good times. I don't do overtime on a Friday. I try to do an hour a day, sometimes I don't. 1, 2, 3 full arm lengths will be enough for a little car like this. On a normal size sedan it's generally 3.5, but as you can see there, that's pretty close. I did pull it from the back for a good reason, so that the plastic doesn't get caught up on the bonnet. And then I also like to, when I'm pulling the plastic, I like to just grab it kind of like this and then just tuck it up underneath there. Less chance of having it flap up. So I think sometimes when you're going from spray to bake, you can have a little bit of flap on the I don't know, sounds funny. Yeah, the plastic, you can get some sort of aerodynamics going on with the way that the boost. I nearly lost a door handle once. I had it sitting like here, and the plastic must have flicked up when it was still wet, grabbed it and pulled it down onto the floor. So ever since then, that happened in this booth too. And ever since then I've been doing this, even in the booth, because this is something that you generally don't, well from my experience, don't actually have to do in the booth. Like, I generally usually do this outside when it's windy, just to stop it from blowing around, but all these little things that can help avoid a rework or whatever. Where's my razor blade? Up here, is it? Alrighty. Oh, I've got to love those new Colad blades. They cut so well. And to be honest, this is probably a couple of weeks old. Look at that. Yeah, I deliberately go like a little bit, make it a little bit longer, if you know what I mean, and then I'll just sort of tuck it. I don't have to go exactly. And then you just tuck it up underneath like that. I've got another roll of tape. Don't need that one. So yeah, what's on this weekend? I'm going to be doing a bit of work on my Tirana as usual. My friend's coming over. We're going to be trying to, at least, weld on the back panel. I've got a new back panel. I've got new quarter panel ends and 2 new buckets as well. I've actually also got some a lower beaver panel, they call it, so we might have to put that on too. Yeah, sometimes I just ramble on about whatever's on the top of my head when I'm doing masking, because I find it hard to like narrate masking. I'm getting tape and I'm putting it on the cut. I'm getting a razor blade and I'm cutting the plastic. I don't know what else I can say. Well, I mean, I clean the panels before I mask it. But yeah, like when I started, this is this trade has come a long way, yet the fundamentals, I guess, have kind of stayed the same in a way, but the methods have been refined a big amount in the 22 years since I've started. Yeah, like we used to paper everything, and then you get last thing, so you'd paper it all up, and then you get your plastic and tuck it in up under it, you know, and then or some people used to do it slightly different, but it would always be papered up for, like, well, I mean, maybe not always, but 90% of the time. I don't even know if you could paint over the old plastic. I think it might have flaked off or something, but yeah, and that's possibly why we did put the paper down. But yeah, even the plastic, like the plastic used to not be quite as wide. You can see how on a car like this especially, well, the old plastic would have covered, probably just covered a car like this, but then you may have to put a bit of paper down on the sill panel. But yeah, even little things like that is sort of speeds the procedure up. I have a family member. He's like, man, he must be 100 years old. He used John O'Malley is his name. It kind of sounds weird when you say it, but it was my grandma's boyfriend. It was like, my grandma's long since passed away, like over 10 years, but she never married him, but they were, you know, kind of long-term partners, I guess. But so I guess, yeah, my grandma's boyfriend, and he's still around, and man, he's like 130 years old. I can't even believe that he's still kicking. It's awesome, and he's still really with it too. Like, I've got to ask him next time I see him, like, what's your secret? But yeah, he still plays squash and stuff like that. It's amazing. But yeah, because he used to have a body shop, I was sort of talking to him recently, and I was saying the main thing that's changed is just the efficiency and how fast we can get jobs done. You know, it really has come a long way. Like, you think about way back in the day when they using acrylics and lead loading, and in a way, I guess, like, we're more wasteful these days with, like, well, yeah, well, that's the New Guard here, New Guard and bumper. I don't know how bad they are, but I would just about guarantee that back in his day they would have been repaired, whereas now we just replace, you know, yeah, we just replace panels, probably too easy, but that's just economics, isn't it? You know, if it's gonna cost you more to pay someone in labour to fix it than it is to buy a new one, what are you gonna do? You know. The paint rep came in today, and unfortunately it turned out that this just wasn't the best job for it, but he's going to be doing a demo and take me through a job on their Extreme Clear. No doubt many of you guys know about it. It may have a different name where you are in the world, but I think it's classed as a LE. So originally I thought LE was low emissions, but it turns out, he told me today, it's low energy. So they're fast drying clears. So it's a premium clear, so it's got a good gloss retention, but you don't need to bake it. So it's you can paint it big jobs as well. So like it has a reasonable window of while it's going to stay open. That's what I said to him. I said, like, if it dries so fast, am I going to put a coat on the bonnet, and then by the time I go to paint the roof, is it going to go all dry and sort of sit up on top of the bonnet? He's like, nah, like, you still get a decent open window. But then you leave it for like 20 minutes to half an hour, turn the booth off, don't even bake it, don't even have to leave it on spray cycle, finish clearing, turn the booth off, no bake cycle, and it'll be dry in like 20 minutes, half an hour. And he's like, yeah, they can put it together straight away. So that sounds pretty impressive, and I mentioned it because I was talking about the environment before, and I think that's a big step forward as far as this industry goes with environmental. So for a while there, the technology was going infrared, gas-fired infrared, these really extravagant, expensive spray booths. But as it turns out now, I would say the paint has kind of leapfrogged the spray booth tech, if you know what I mean. Well, at the end of the day, all of that tech was there to help dry the paint, but if the paint dries without it, well then we don't need you anymore, you know what I mean? So that's kind of good. again, another improvement on environment, because the amount of energy that goes into, you know, firing those gas-fired infrared things, no doubt, is quite high. And I don't know exactly how much the price is, but my boss here doesn't seem to mind spending decent dollars on good products. And you know, when he sort of steps back and looks at the bigger picture and says the jobs are going out looking just as good, I'm spending a little bit more on the clear, which he may or may not. As I say, we're already using a premium clear here anyway. We're using the Performance Pro Clear. So but when he also looks back and says, hey, my gas bill has just dropped through the arse, you know, instead of going through the roof, it's going the other way. He'll, especially at a time these days when gas, you know, gas is getting pretty expensive. So I think it could be a good thing for us to move in that direction. But yeah, the paint rep was saying that you want to, you got to make sure you put hardener in the base coat unless you wet it. Yeah, so there's a couple of, you know, not going to be too hard to figure out how to do it, but it all sounds relatively basic. But it would still obviously be good to go through a job with him, just to sort of familiarise myself with the procedure. I find the Axalta reps probably some of the best I've ever had the pleasure of working with. I find them very calm and easygoing type people, and not too stickler for the rules, you know. I was talking to him today about how, like, we were talking about wet on wet, and then I said, oh, you know, have you ever had like people talk about when, you know, they do a bonnet? I said sometimes I get like a bit of dieback, pinch back from it. And he knew straight away. And like, there's another thing I appreciate about them is that they don't try to, I've never heard of that before. You know, it's like, man, it's your paint. Like, I'm not doing anything that anyone else wouldn't do. You know what I mean? Don't try and pin it on me when I'm just, when I say it to another paint rep, I'm only just trying to say, oh, this is an issue. Like, I'm more trying to probe a way to fix it. I'm not like, it's like they sometimes get all defensive, you know what I mean? It's like, no, don't take it personal, mate. It's just paint. Anybody, you know, anybody could be representing that company. Don't you take it personally, mate. It wasn't meant to be personal, but yeah, so that's what I said about this, the wet on wet. I said, oh, you know, do you know about that? And he's like, yeah, I know. And then I said, well, I've found a way to get around it. I said, I double my thinners. And then he kind of looked at me out the side of his eye and I said, you guys probably don't like that, do you? And he's like, not really. And then before he could say anything else, I just said, but I love your paint and I'm getting awesome finishes. And he just smiled out the side of his mouth. So it's like, you know, what can he say? I'm like, man, I do love your paint and I am getting awesome finishes. And if it means I have to slightly step outside of the recommendations to get it, well, as far as the way I look at that, right, you know, technically they don't say to put that extra bit of thinners in it. The paint is smiling at me. The paint is telling me, you know what I mean? Like, when the paint is pinching back and not looking good, that's the paint telling me I don't like that. When I get a killer finish and it looks right and it holds a good gloss, that's the paint telling me, I like doing what you just did. Do that to me next time. You know what I mean? Does your paint talk to you? Does your paint smile at you? I cracked myself up. But yeah, the weather's slowly getting warmer. It's probably about time to take that hoodie off of mine. That Gunman hoodie, which you should all go and buy one of, if you don't already have. And if you do, buy another one. Go buy all my merch. But no, it's good. I like this time of year. Spring's probably my favourite time of year. Yeah, I was talking in that recent video that I did about looking for a car for my wife, and yeah, so I'm thinking go that Mercedes that I've always wanted, Because like I was looking at the Japanese used car market, and it's like they nearly hold their value too much, like the used Japanese cars. And then it's like, because I don't know, spent a long time looking and, you know, just thinking where would be the best value, you know. Like I don't mind spending money if I have to, if you're going to get a better deal, or, you know, it's going to be long term better for me. Originally I was thinking sort of up to 5,000, and I'm like, oh well, you don't get much for 5 grand, you get a bit of an old dunger. And I'm like, okay, should I spend up to 10? And then it's like, well, you're going to spend up to 10, well then you're still only going to get a car with sort of you know, from 150 to 200,000 Ks, and then do you go a bit higher? And then it really just turns out to me is the best value in the used Japanese car, well, the best value in the Japanese car market is new. That's pretty much, or basically brand, like, you know, ex-demo with a couple of thousand Ks on it. And then it's like, well, I didn't want to spend that much. I didn't want to go that high. And then I remembered, I'm like, you know what? I always wanted a Mercedes, and then I remembered, I'm like, you know what? Some of them are actually pretty damn cheap. And you can get like pretty low Ks Benz for a reasonable price. And then I had another look last night and this morning, and like I found one, it's like a C180 or a C200, like the compact type, you know, sedan, for it's like 8 or 9, yeah, it's $7,000 to $10,000 basically. You can get one, you know, less than 150,000 Ks, less than 20 years old. And one thing that I have found about Benzes, rich people own them. One thing I've found about rich people is that they don't mind spending a bit of money on there. They don't mind, you know, they'll keep up to date with the services. And I guess part of the reason that people are scared off buying them is because the reputation they have for being expensive to service, or if something does go wrong. But then I'm thinking, you know what? There's probably enough of them out there that you can get, you know, wreckers, and you can probably find, you know, parts for them. So yeah, I don't know, that's what I'm thinking of, getting that Benz. And then on the other hand, it's probably good for a car to learn in, because they're safe. Like the safety features on them are probably much better than your you know, your average Honda Jazz or whatever, you know. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm just ranting. Pay no mind to me. Yay, payday! Pay went in today. Yeah, I think again I was saying in another previous video that I think I'm better at spraying Stando Blue than I've ever been this time around, and I definitely appreciate it more than I ever did as well. So it's just such a pleasure to paint. There's a couple of little things that, you know, I know now that I didn't, or that I do now that I didn't previously, and it's just such a pleasure, and I'm just so thankful that I finally found this shop that I'm happy in. And they love me, obviously. I actually did a few raw vids on that I didn't upload. I still got the footage, and maybe I deleted it actually, doesn't matter. But yeah, I sort of, when I moved here, I was kind of, I guess, bitching really. Let's be straight. I was just sort of explaining, and you know, and then I'm like, no, I don't want the drama, you know what I mean? I can't be bothered. And It's just all it really look, I don't know anyone an explanation, and you know, people are gonna go and it doesn't matter, like they're gonna go and talk shit about me no matter what. So some of them are saying, oh, Gunman's moving workshop again, blah blah blah, and it's like, well, this is only the third shop since coming back to Melbourne. 2 of them didn't work out, so what, you know? I wasn't happy there. Doesn't even matter why I left. And one thing, all I'll say about why I left is it was my choice. It wasn't, I never got sacked. And they both tried keeping me. Both of them tried keeping me, and both of them threw money my way to keep me, but I still left. That's all I'll say. But yeah, it's just so good to be back on the Stando Blue. It's like absence makes the heart grow fonder. I literally have not done any colour matching for about 2 months, it feels. And if I have, it's only one quick spray out because there wasn't a colour chip, and then you're like, oh, it's actually pretty good. And then sometimes you might be like, oh, it needs a drop of this, and that's it. Like literally one tint, and that's it. I was even talking to that paint rep this morning, and he said, oh, I was doing a demo recently, and he goes, I had to tint a colour, and he goes, I nearly forgot how to do it, because you don't have to, man. Like it's how good this system is, man. And sometimes I get these people, like on Instagram mainly, they're like, oh, I never had a problem with PPG. And I'm like, mate, what world do you live in? Like, I barely ever had a good match with PPG. I was going to say it was inverted, but it's way more than that, you know, because you might get, out of 10 PPG colours, you might get 2 good ones, but it's way, way, way more than that. It's way more than inverted, because it's not, you don't even get 2 bad ones out of 10 in standoffs, you know, like it's more like you might get 2 bad ones out of 1,000, you know, it's that. And then when you do get the bad ones, it's like there's a good chance, there's a good reason for it. Like the last time I had a trouble matching, it was because it wasn't original paint. Someone else had painted it, and you know, it was probably done in PPG. You know, that's just how it is. You can tell, oh, the bit that just so happened that the bit that I had to match to was the only bit on the car that wasn't factory, unluckily enough. And the bosses needed it. Like, we do some car yard work here, and we were doing a bonnet, and someone had literally done exactly the bonnet, but they'd blended the guards the wrong colour, so our colour matched the rest of the car, but it didn't match the one bit that we had to paint, unfortunately. But even then, and that's the only one memorable thing that I had here, you know, any trouble with the colour. And it was like, you can't blame that on Standox when your paint doesn't match someone else's shitty paint job, yet it matches the factory. Like, yeah. Even this one here, I just did because it's a solid colour. With solid colours, a lot of the time I'll just do a wild card search, because there's no metallics in there to sort of change it. With all metallics, I always try to find the correct colour, because yeah, you can get the wrong flake size, or you can, you know, you don't want the wrong metallic in there. But with your solid colours, I'll just do a wild card search, look for the top 3 colours that pop up, and if any of the top 3 have a colour chip, I'll look for that colour chip, and then check it, obviously, and then if the colour chip's right, I'll just mix it and paint it, which is what I did on this one. So this one here, I think it's called Hip Hop Red. It's a, I'm painting this a Hyundai colour, and it's perfect, edge to edge. But obviously we are doing a couple of blends. This here has been done before. This has actually been done in Direct Gloss 2K, so tiny little, you know, scuff with 800 and it went straight through. That doesn't usually happen, but I'll just puff a little bit of colour over it, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, the paint on this has got stone chips and crap all through it, so I fixed them all. Feels like this job's taken me a little bit longer than usual, and I guess it is because of those stone chips, but on the other hand, I guess it's a kind of a big job. I smash the big jobs out here, man. And we do all of our own primer work. It's me and Eddie, the other painter here. We don't have any apprentices or prep guys, it's just me and him. So 2 painters and 2 panel beaters. They've got a car washer, and I do say car washer because it's not a Jeep, it doesn't do any polishing. I think he's got like an orbital polisher out there, so I think he can, you know, polish a surrounding panel, but that's pretty much the extent of it, but that's all good. But I don't even buff my own jobs barely, man. Like I'll buff one job this week because it was an extra fussy customer. It was like a really, really fussy guy. They reckon that they've done